Hey fellow gliders, welcome back. I'm excited to announce that Glide has been releasing some new components over the past few weeks. And when I mean new components, really these are components that had already existed in Glide apps, but have finally made their way over to Glide pages. One of those components is the ratings component, which I'm really excited about because it was a component that I had used all of the time in order to gather star ratings from my app users and then display them in a numerical or star rating visualization on the front end. So what I thought I would do is revamp my video on how to collect ratings from your users and then display them as an average star rating for each of your items. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to set this up. So for our purposes today, I'm creating an app where I'm going to display some local restaurants and then allow my users to rate those restaurants. We need 3 tables to make this happen. We need a users table, my restaurants table, and then my ratings table. I already have the first 2. I have my users and my restaurants. And then I'm going to have my users be able to leave a review for that restaurant, which is going to write a new row to a reviews table. So I'm going to go ahead and create that now. Let's go ahead and create a new table. And we're going to call this ratings. And there's only a few things we need to collect for ratings, right? We need maybe the timestamp as to when that rating was left. We need the numerical value, so the rating itself. This will be a number column. And it's possible it could be 1 out of 5 in this case. So we're going to do precision 1 and leave the decimal off at the moment. Okay, then we need who's leaving the rating. If you want to make it anonymous, you can just use the user ID or just the user name. If you want to allow a user to revisit and update their rating, you'll want to have something unique like their row ID or their email. To keep things anonymous though, I like to use row ID. So I'm going to call this user ID. And then lastly, we need maybe the comment in case we're leaving comments in the rating as well. And then, we also need the restaurant ID, right? So as to know which restaurant we're rating. Great, these are all the things we need. Let's make sure we have a user ID and a restaurant ID in our 2 tables here. So for the restaurants, I'm gonna add a row ID. And same thing for users. Other row ID. Great. So we actually need one more table. This table is going to be our star lookup. So I'm going to create one more table here. I'm going to call it just stars. And if we're giving a rating out of 5 stars, I need 5 rows in this table. Okay. So this will be the stars and then a numerical version of that. So I'll call this rating and make it a number column with precision 1. So the rating, we'll do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then for stars, we need to display a star rating that's based on this numerical rating. So if I dive in here and do a keyboard shortcut, I can bring up my emojis. And I like to use this filled in star and then I think it's called black star and then white star, even though because I'm in dark mode, it's the opposite. So for a star rating of 1, it'll be a single star, followed by some empty stars like that. I'll just paste like so. Okay, then for the other ones, I'm just gonna copy and paste here. And then I'm gonna remove all of the empty stars that we don't need. Not all of them. And then fill in the fill-in stars that we do need. Okay, so that's a rating of 3, a rating of 4, and a rating of 5, like so. So the purpose of this table is that we're going to end up having an average rating that we're going to relate to this numerical rating so we can bring in this star rating back to the restaurant table. We'll do all that in just a second. All right, so now that we have our stars, we're going to go ahead and bring in these values into our restaurants table and our ratings table. Let's start with the ratings table. I'm going to create a relation to the stars table that's going to connect the rating we're giving it to the rating column in the stars table. So I'll call this rel stars. Type will be a relation column. And I'm going to relate the numerical rating to the stars rating. All right. We don't need to match multiple because there's only ever one. And then we're going to bring in those stars. So I'll just call this stars. It's going to be a lookup column, and we're going to look up through the relation to grab those stars. So as you can see here, if I put in a rating of 1, I'm going to get 1 star. It makes the relation happen and then brings in the star value, right? And a version of 5 would give me the 5 stars and so forth. Okay, so then that way, as we're displaying each person's ratings in the app, we can also see the star rating that they're giving rather than the numerical rating. All right, now we need to do the same thing for restaurants, but what's tricky is that we're also going to average the ratings. So we need to do a little bit of math here. The very first thing we have to do is create a relation to the ratings so we know which restaurants have been rated. So I'm going to create a new column. We'll call this rel ratings. It's going to be a relation column where we're going to match the row ID of the restaurant, which is the restaurant ID, and we're going to match it to the ratings restaurant ID. This one we are going to match multiple because hopefully each restaurant has more than one rating. Done. All right, now we're going to roll up the numerical ratings. So we're going to call this average rating, and it's going to be a roll-up column where we're going to roll up through the ratings relation the numerical rating column. Okay. And then we're not going to get the count as to how many ratings there are, though we actually might want that eventually. But at this point, we actually just want to see the average amount of the score, right? And we're going to display maybe just like the with one decimal place, like a 4.3. We don't really need a 4.37, and we don't have to be that specific unless you want to be. Okay, we'll hit done on here. Now, I think I do want to catch how many ratings there actually are, so I can display that as well. So I'm going to duplicate this column, and we're going to call this rating count. So it's still going to be a roll-up of the rel ratings rating, but this time we're going to get the count instead, and precision will be 1. Okay. Now, if we want to display a number or a unit with this, we could display the unit here, like ratings. Only problem is if there's only one rating, then you have one ratings, which I don't like. So luckily, Glide has for us a pluralized text column, which comes in handy here. So I'm going to add a column to the right of this, and I'm going to call this rating count display. And I'm going to use the pluralized text column. Nice little handy column here. And it accepts a few different inputs. So one of them is the number that we're trying to display. In this case, it's going to be the rating count. And if there's only one value, what is the unit? In this case, rating. But if there's many, it'll be ratings. If there's 0, I'm going to say 0 ratings or no ratings. Right? And then we can include the number if we'd like. And then done. All right, so here we see that there are no ratings, but the moment I add a rating, not to that column, but to this one, let's add that over. Okay, then we should see that we have rating count should be, let's have a relation point to the restaurant ID instead. Okay, so now we have one rating. Okay. All right, so then ultimately we're going to get an average rating here. Let's dummy this data, and I'm going to say a rating of something strange, like a 4 and a 3. Okay, so now our average rating will be 7 divided by 2, which is a 3.5. Okay, and then ultimately what we want here is to grab the star value for this rating. So I would say you probably want to round this value, right? Unfortunately, there are no half-star icons to display. That would be really nice if there were. So if you want to use something other than stars, like some sort of like emoji, we're using like half moons or something, you go for it. But I'm just going to round and call it a day. So if it's a 3.5, it'll round up to 4. If it's a 3.4, it'll round down to 3. And then I'm going to make my relation in that regard. Okay, so we're going to do, so we have this average rating. We're going to add a column to the right and call this rounded rating. It's going to be a math column. And we're going to round that average rating. So I'm just going to say round, and then I'll type the words average. It's going to find my average rating, and precision will be 1, and then done. All right, so my 3.5 should be rounded up to a 4, and it is. All right, so then from here, I'm going to relate this to my stars column. I'm going to say rel rounded rating. I'm going to make a relation from my rounded rating to the stars rating. I found a match. Okay, and then from here, I'm going to go ahead and grab the stars. Again, a lookup through the relation to grab the stars. Now, I guess the only thing I don't have in here is a 0 star. I should probably put that in, right? Because if, let's say I have 3 ratings in here where I have a 0, a 0, and a 1, that's going to have a 0.33 rating, right? Which is going to be rounded down to a 0, and I don't have a 0 that I'm relating to. So we should probably have 1 more star rating in here, which is unfortunate for that restaurant. But then that way someone can see that they got 0 stars. All right, so now that should be a thing, and it is. Okay, so we have stars. Let's go ahead and give this rating a little bit more accolades. Okay, so we have an average of a 3.7. Fine, rounded up to a 4. So then let's give one more type of display. So I could display just the stars, or I could display just the average rating, but maybe you want to do both, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add a new column here, and I'm going to call this star display. It's going to be a template column where I'm going to display the star rating for a restaurant, followed by parentheses. And inside the parentheses, we're going to have the average rating. So it'll look like this. Stars, followed by the average rating. Like so. So now, while this looks really good if this restaurant has ratings, for the restaurants that don't have ratings, these empty parentheses look kind of funny. So I'm going to do one more column, and we'll call this if star rating. Be an if then else column. I'm going to say if the relation to ratings is empty, meaning they don't have any ratings yet, then just leave it blank. Otherwise, we'll do the star display like that. So if they don't have any ratings yet, again, blank. Otherwise, the pretty star rating that we gave. All right, all of our columns have been created on the back end. Now we can do the fun part of creating the interface on the front end. I'm going to switch over to the layout view. And here are my list of restaurants. And the first thing I want to do is display that if star rating, maybe here as the meta for this collection. So under the meta section here, I'm going to choose that if star rating, and now you see that this one has been rated. Looks really great. Afterwards, we're going to go ahead and dive into a restaurant and build out the interface for them to actually leave a rating. In Glide Apps Classic, I had used the basic table for this along with a button. In Glide Pages, I have found that my favorite component to display the star rating as well as accept new ratings is the action row component. So I'm going to add a new component here. It's going to be the action row. It's in that pink section for me. And here we can display in one of two ways, either as a field or as a title. I'm going to choose title. That way we have this bolded text up front. And that bolded text is going to be that if star display, this one here. Okay, so that way they can see the rating nice and bold. And then the text underneath it, I'm going to say, the label underneath it, is going to be the how many ratings they have, the rating count display, like so. Okay, then this action row component gives us a couple of buttons. So I'm going to have two buttons. The first button is going to allow them to leave a review, and the second button will allow them to see all reviews. Now, this makes me think of one thing. We don't want to have a user be able to leave necessarily more than one review for a restaurant. Right? If you want to allow that, then you can ignore this next section of the video. Just go to the timestamp to the next section. But if you want to limit how many times a user has left a review, then you have to build out a little bit of logic in the back end here. So I'm going to go back to the data editor. I'm going to build this out. What we can do here is in the ratings component, since we're tracking the user ID, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and throw my user ID as one of the ratings in here. We can do a conditional relation to see if I have left a review for this restaurant, then that's going to prevent me from being able to leave a new one. So here's how we'll build that out. I'm going to do an if-then column in the ratings table. I'm going to call this if current user then restaurant ID. So we're going to check to see if that user ID is the signed in user, and if so, output the restaurant ID. So to do that, we'll say if the user ID is the signed in user, which is the user profile row ID, if they make a match, then we're going to output the restaurant ID, else nothing. Okay, so because I left this review, it's outputting that restaurant ID. But if I sign in as anybody else, we see that that field is blank. Okay, so now I can make a relation in the restaurants table to say to rel my rating. And it's going to be a relation column where I'm going to relate the row ID, the restaurant ID, to the ratings if current user restaurant ID. Okay, so here we can see I've already left a rating for this restaurant, and I can use this column now as a condition to whether or not to show or hide or allow the use of that action. Okay, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and delete my user ID out of there so that way I can start from scratch. Okay, so let's go ahead and build out the rating screen. So in my action row, I'm going to create a new action. I'm going to give it the title of leave a rating. Now you can see that in a mobile view, I'm not going to see the words. I'm only going to see an icon if I selected an icon. So in this case, I want to be more specific. I want them to know that this is the button they're pressing to leave a rating. I don't want them to guess, what does this icon mean, right? So I'm actually going to remove the icon altogether, which then leaves just the words. So now that we have our leave a ratings button, I want this button to do one of two things. Either it's going to leave a new review for a user if they haven't left a review for this restaurant yet, or if they've already left a review, I want them to have an interface where they can edit the review. So because it's a conditional button, under the actions, I'm going to create a new action where I can specify that condition. So I'm going to create a new action here. And I'm going to call this new or edit rating. And I'm going to create a condition here, add a condition to see whether or not they've already left a rating, which is the rel my rating. So if the rel my rating is empty, then we're going to show a form screen. And we'll leave a form screen as a slide in. Otherwise, we're going to show an edit screen. So to allow them to edit their review. And the edit screen will also be a slide in, but it's not going to be this item because we don't want them editing the restaurant. We want them editing their rating, the rel my rating. All right, this is all we need. We'll hit save. Okay, so when I press leave a rating, it should open up a new form screen. So leave a rating. Okay, let's go ahead and title this. So under options, instead of add item, we'll say leave a review. The sheet will be the rating sheet. And a lot of these columns or these components will actually be passed in the back end. So I like to do it one at a time. So the timestamp here, if I remove timestamp, I'm going to add in a special value, current date and time. So by doing it one at a time, it's going to find the one that I had removed, which is nice too. So I don't have to choose then from the drop down which column I'm looking for. So the restaurant ID, I'll remove that one and then add the values from screen, row ID, to pass the restaurant ID along the back end. Okay, restaurant ID. The rating is going to be a ratings component. I'll go to that in just a second. The user ID will be the values from profile, row ID. That's the user ID there. Okay, rel star, we were to that choice component gave me. For comments, I'm going to make it a large text box so they can leave a lot of comments. And then the rating is going to be the new ratings component, which is at the under the actions here, rating. And we can configure this a few different ways. Max rating 5 stars. We're going to save it to that numerical rating column. And then for content, we can display an image or some other things here. So I think I'm just going to remove the label and just leave this bolded kind of text here and say, leave a star rating, something like that. Okay, let's go ahead and submit this form to see what happens. I'm going to choose 5 stars, and then under comments, excellent place to eat, hit submit. Okay, we see that we now have 4 ratings with an average star of 4. And diving into our data editor, we can confirm all of that. Yep. So there's our new rating. So we have 5, 10, 15, 16 divided by 4 is our 4 average. That all works. And now when we push the button, we should see our edit screen instead of the new form screen. So I'm going to click on leave a rating. And there we go. We're now in the edit screen for this item. So for the title, I'm going to say modify your review. And we only need 2 components here. We need our text entry, which is going to modify our comments, right? So we can allow them to modify their comments if they'd like, and they can adjust their star rating if they'd like. So here is the rating, like so. All right, so they can adjust their rating and hit submit, and it would modify that rating. Okay, so we have the ability now to see star ratings, the ability to leave a rating, but what if we want to view all of the ratings for this restaurant, right? We should probably have one more final button in order to make that happen. So in the action row, I'm going to add another action here, and let's call this view ratings. But see how it gets all kind of smushed on a mobile device? So on this one, I think I am going to leave it as an icon to make it more compact. Possibly the star, or I think I like the speech bubble. I think that kind of signifies, like, hey, let's see what people have said about this place. Okay, and this is going to show a new screen for the reviews. So I'm going to go ahead and select show new screen. The new screen that for the data is going to be the this item. And we're going to display it again in maybe an overlay this time. The difference between a slide-in and an overlay, a slide-in will only show up like half the screen, whereas an overlay will take up the entire screen. I think I'm going to do the overlay, so it shows up the whole new screen. All right, so now when I click on this icon, I'll get a whole new screen. I'm going to copy some of these components here first. So I'm going to copy all. Now click on the icon, and I'm going to configure this rating screen. All right, so I'm going to delete some of the things that are there. Paste, like so. And then let's remove our action row and instead display the ratings. For our title, let's get rid of the description. And for the emphasis, let's say ratings for our restaurant. And now we can display our list of ratings. Let's maybe in a list. Okay, so here's our list. It's our collection of ratings. Let's go ahead and clean up our data a little bit because that looks kind of ugly. So our timestamp, we'll just kind of pretend they all were done at the same time. User ID, even though it's not possible, we'll go ahead and add those in. Poor service to reflect our 1-star rating. All right, and maybe you want a prettier timestamp than this. I like using the relative time column. So I'm going to add a column to the right and say relative time. And this is going to be, if you just search for relative, it shows up. Yeah, relative time. The date is going to be that timestamp, right? So we can see like 4 minutes ago. But for this, I like to use the Twitter version. So it'll show like 5 minutes ago, but if it was like yesterday, then, oh, this should be a date time column, sorry. Then it actually says like 1 day ago, but if it was like last month, it'll say 1 month ago. Oh, is it lowercase t? There we go. It'll actually have like the date instead. Completely up to you though how you want to do this. Always you can call it a day, make the timestamp simpler without the time, just date only. Right? Short, something like this maybe. Completely up to you. Okay, so for our collection, what I like is the card style layout. We're not going to need to search reviews under actions. I'm going to hide all of those. And I'm not even going to have them even click into the review at all either. So under advanced actions, I'm going to hide the detail screen. No image. Okay, and then for the title, want to see how many stars they gave. For the description, their comments, right? And then for the meta, will be the timestamp, like that. Yeah, maybe I don't like the Twitter style. I think I'll just go back. So what are our options? We have Twitter, we have mini. Meh. Or just round. We'll stick with this, I think. Okay, and then you want to sort this by timestamp. So we'll sort where timestamp in reverse chronological order. There we go. Maybe on this screen under the title, we can display that if star rating like that. Yeah, that looks great. All right, so we have a list of all of our ratings. They can navigate back, they can leave a rating, edit their ratings, and see overall ratings for this establishment. And it all looks nice and tidy inside of this action row component. So hopefully you enjoyed building out this functionality with me. We used a lot of interesting techniques, didn't we? We used relations, conditional actions, roll-ups, lookups, template columns, math columns, all the fun things that make Glide such a wonderful platform to use. If you have any questions at all, feel free to leave me a comment below. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. You can always reach out to me at Twitter at rpetito. And as always, thanks for watching.